Welcome to the Mike Herrera Hour on Adobe.com, Adobe Radio. Thanks for listening. We're on every Friday night at 8 p.m. on the East Coast of the USA. That's Eastern Standard Time. And that's 5 p.m. for you non-math geniuses on the West Coast. And then you just got to put it together. I can't name everybody. What's Central? Central 7. So if you're listening live, it's always fun because you feel into it. Also available, full thing, all the episodes of the Mike Herrera Hour used to be Mike Herrera Podcast. Now we're just kind of just calling everything Hour, and then the ones on the podcast, iTunes and Stitcher, and my Tumblr page, which is mikeherrerabestlife.tumblr.com. You can get anything, any link you want from there. Just click on the podcast page. Anyway, we always have overtime whenever we can, as much as we can, for the extra people that subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Thanks for all the feedback I get. I really appreciate it. We're still pretty small. We don't have a ton of listeners. No 100,000 downloads per episodes, but I'm very happy that people are into it, and it's a lot of the same people that sort of keep coming back. So thank you guys. A couple more things before we get into my guest. We got a lot of topics, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of somber, serious stuff, but it is 9/11, and I was at home. Actually, my wife, before we were married, was with me, and she was visiting from Texas, and we woke up to my buddy called me on the phone and was like, dude, turn on CNN right now. And so we kind of just go out, turn on the TV, and not 5 minutes later, the second plane hits the second tower. And from then on, I'm just like in this weird state of, well, definitely in retrospect, it's a dreamlike state. But, it's hard to know how I really remember it, if that's correct, it was such a whirlwind. There were so many things going on. I was in love with this girl, and she was with me, and I felt like I had to do what I could to protect her. And, even though like nobody was in danger, but it just seemed like, okay, we're on edge. Like, it's something else going to happen. You don't know. All the planes shut down, all the airports. We had a flight scheduled the next day. We had a tour scheduled, and that obviously flight didn't happen. We ended up canceling the first couple shows of the tour, and we were just going to cancel the whole tour just because it didn't seem right to do it. We're not comics. We're a band. We're entertainment. So I don't think it's the same as, we're not telling jokes about 9/11. How soon is too soon? So it was a little different, but we kind of put it out there and asked, what do you think? We're going to cancel this tour. It seems like maybe it's the right thing to do. And the fans responded, no, please don't, because we need to feel normal. We need to have something in our lives that brings us joy. And so we did the tour, and it was really successful, actually. It was mostly a West Coast tour. We hit Vegas. It was it was like a turbulent time, and it has been ever since, it seems like, within U.S. politics. But maybe my guest can break some of this down for us. He's a friend of mine. We've worked together in the studio, and he plays in a band, but his main gig is he's a psychologist. He considers himself a punk rock psychologist. So welcome, David Camarena. Thanks for joining me.
What's going on? It's good to be here. It's good to be here with you tonight.
Yeah, man. So obviously a lot of emotions on a memorial like today. This is
definitely
kind of our, maybe, and I'm not saying the scenarios match, but in the way it affected the psyche of America. Maybe this is our generation's, and it's a broad generational thing, but our generation's JFK assassination. There
Okay.
hasn't been anything quite that
Right.
devastating. Maybe in the middle of that, there was the Discovery, the
Right.
space shuttle that
Hmm.
blew up on takeoff, and I remember that day.
Right.
I was watching on TV when it happened, which is
Mhm.
kind of weird, rare, right? I was pretty little. I was
Yeah.
I don't remember the year, so I don't remember what grade I was in.
You're talking about the Challenger, I think.
Oh, sorry, not the
Explosion.
Discovery. I'm sorry,
The
Challenger. Yes, the
Right.
Challenger.
Yeah. And that was in the 80s. I
And that
thought like
was yeah.
80s,
So that was sort of like
87. I think it was.
yeah, and that wasn't obvious. It wasn't maybe it wasn't as big of a world event, but it was pretty big in the
Yeah.
U.S.
I
at the
mean,
time. Do you remember? I mean, you were pretty young.
I was 3 years old in
Okay, you don't
'87. So,
remember.
no, but I definitely they taught that in the history books at school, just like I'm sure they teach kids today about 9/11 in the history
Yeah,
books. And it was a big event. I remember looking up the video and watching it, and it was very impactful even for me, even though it's been I was what 8, 9 when I learned about it. So it's a devastating thing whenever there's a tragedy. I mean, it still affects people
absolutely.
decades later.
I was dumbfounded when I saw the space shuttle blow up,
Right.
and I just remember like the one thing that really, really hit me was there was a
Hmm.
teacher that was one of the passengers, and they had
Right.
trained for this. You know, it was like a teacher that wasn't a career astronaut, and I think it was a woman. She had trained for this,
Right.
and it was, I mean, so triumphant. You know, you got to think like that's what's so devastating about that.
All the
That's
preparation,
all the
all the
preparation,
planning.
all the
Yeah.
planning, all this
Right.
sort of the pomp and circumstance, the sort of pride in sending a vessel to space, to outer space, to
Mhm.
you can't breathe out there. There's no gravity, or at least the gravity is very light, and it's just all these things are against you. It's like space, the final frontier, Star Trek,
Right.
and yeah, we. In my mind, just knowing that was just like this teacher died doing, and I guess in
Right.
retrospect, it's like, you know what? At least they died doing something that they loved and didn't know it was going to happen, or at least it was a pretty short amount of time before the just kablooey.
Oh yeah.
When you die
Yeah.
when people die, if they're not incinerated by a nuclear
Yeah.
bomb or by
Right.
just intense fire,
Yeah.
you take a while to die. A lot of times, like a quick death would be a good 2 to 4 minutes, and then
Right.
a normal death would be half hour more. When you get
That's
shot,
true.
you get shot, you get stabbed, you get whatever, you get your throat slit. You're gonna
Right.
bleed out, but it's gonna
Take a while.
take a while.
Mm.
I hate to be all morbid, but it's these things that we're not really taught about. Like we're not taught the nitty gritty of life. It's like
It's true.
when you hear about the ER stories
Yeah.
or even just delivery, like pregnancy,
Right.
birthing stories that have got some of the weird ones. It's just like they don't tell you that stuff until it happens to you. And it's like, why didn't they tell us this in the first place? It's like they give us the valedictorian speech
Right.
without the, this is what you really need to learn. If you had one thing, it would be this. They don't do that. They make
Right.
it sound all pretty. Anyway, I don't want to take up all
No,
the
it's fine.
talking, but
No, yeah, no, what you're saying is definitely correct. I actually came from a background that was just the opposite because my dad was in the medical field. He's a surgical technologist. He's a director now, but back then he just did a lot of surgeries, and he would bring home heart lung transplant videos, and my brother and I are like, 5 and 7 years old, and we're watching these heart lung transplants on television. And my dad just wanted us to expose it, and he didn't want to hide the truth from us, and said, "Hey, this is real life. This is what blood and guts. This is who we are. This is what happens every day."
wow.
So it was pretty shocking, to get desensitized at that young age, but we were able to take it. Luckily, he took
Yeah.
a risk, and then growing up, I through the years, you really don't see it. I mean, a lot of my family members are healthy. You really don't see death or blood and guts. I mean, I've seen an accident here or there on the freeway, but you never really see the mangled bodies because they have a tarp already. They cover it up. You don't really see the blood and guts. But when I was 19, I got a job at the hospital as an escort, which is not that kind of escort.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was on my badge. I got a lot of friends like telling me, "You're an escort for old people." No, no, no. I do patient transport and just moving bodies around. Basically, I would take a mother home from the hospital with a newborn baby. Wheelchair her out of the building, take so they can go home, and then the same day I would be taking a dead baby to the morgue, or I would take an elderly person or a young person to the morgue, or so I saw life and death firsthand, and it was just a wake up call to, wow, this is life and death. I was in the middle of it, and it was just really crazy. And that was pretty intense, to experience, especially at 19. You're old enough to take it, but it's also like a game changer. Like, this is life, it's not a joke.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it seems like your father was probably thinking that, man, it takes so long for us as humans, as especially Americans, to really grasp
Right.
what's important in life and like what you should really prioritize. There's just you're kind of, I don't know. I mean, even poor or rich, people are kind of growing up in America very selfishly, and very
Sure.
self-involved. And I feel like maybe your dad was kind of like, he's like, the only way to get these guys to really understand life at a younger
Yeah.
age than most people, I think, kind of discover a lot of this stuff in their 30s,
It's true.
and then they develop it into their 40s. But
Right.
and so it seems like he was sort of, giving you that
Yeah.
just extra knowledge. Like, you can't
It's
just
true.
teach wisdom.
Yeah, it's true.
But-
Sometimes you just have to experience it.
Yeah, just experiencing something intense like that. It's
Yeah.
it's hard to say. I mean, you could turn out a total freak and chop people up, and maybe you do that. Maybe
That's
you're an
true.
American psycho and
No.
you hide it very well.
No, I mean, luckily we were raised, I'm still a practicing Christian. We were raised in a very Christian household. So we had those fundamental beliefs of, even if you're not Christian, the golden rule, treat everybody with respect and, treat somebody good.
You got to admit that some Christians that still believe
Yeah.
in God don't follow that.
No, it's
You
true.
You see
That's
the
true.
mobsters in there,
With
whacking
crosses
somebody
and guns.
Saturday night, and then the next morning they're in church,
No, yeah, it's
doing
true.
some Hail Marys.
Oh yeah, it's totally true. It's funny though, because when we're talking about dead bodies, it reminded me. My
Yeah.
dad, when we were like 12 years old, he would take us to the cadaver labs at the medical centers. So we'd see people like ripped open, and we're like, man, this is intense. Like, we'd see like deformed babies that were born in jars, like stuff that was just really crazy. Like, it was pretty interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, that's intense, man. I mean, that's really intense. I've never seen
It's pretty intense.
a dead body. There was a
Okay.
dead body floating
Yeah,
in the inlet, not too far from my
Right.
place. But I mean, that's like,
that's
you
crazy,
just
man.
hear about people dying. I've seen a dead body one time, actually. Now that I
Really?
remember,
Wow.
it was in New Mexico,
Yeah.
Albuquerque, and some guy was probably drunk and hit a curb. He was on a motorcycle, hit a curb,
Dang.
face plant. His brain was, a cracked egg.
Right, right.
And they were just getting the tarp over on him, and we were just walking from a bar to the hotel or something. Walking.
I'm telling you.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm telling you, it's crazy. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I was just saying that his brother was there and freaking out, just completely kind of mental. Because I mean, he just watched his one moment somebody's alive, and then the next they're dead. That's such just a brain.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
pretty
like,
intense.
it just blows your mind. But
Yeah.
I think when it comes to this life and death stuff, if we were just a little bit more educated on it, we kind of like, I think we're set in the wrong direction from childhood. We're set that these
Right.
things are icky, and we don't,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Shelter.
I'm not even saying that maybe your dad's thing is a good or bad idea. I think it just depends
That's
on the
true.
kids, and it depends on the parents have to take responsibility for how they raise their children. And he
Yeah.
obviously had some sort of idea of, these kids, they can take it, and they had him. You had him that understood all these things. This,
Right.
the business of medicine, the way the body works, the way
Exactly.
things look when they're cut open.
It's true.
Just
It's really
weird,
interesting.
man. I mean, my buddy Trey, he lives here in town, and he grew up in a morgue. He kind
Okay.
of like 6 Feet Under, but he says it's nothing that cool. Like it was fine. Like it was totally normal to him. Nothing crazy happened. No dead bodies like coming back to life. Like he wasn't scared about it. It was just kind of he was callous to it as well. Like,
Okay.
and he's a totally normal dude. Doesn't
Right.
kill people. He's nice.
Yeah.
He's super. You know, it's like, so I think maybe there's something to that. You know, the non-freak out factor of having a little bit more in-depth knowledge and face-to-face knowledge with life and death.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a morgue experience that I had that, I would have considered myself, like you described your friend. I was pretty normal. I was pretty immune to the life-death thing. I was like, you know what? They're dead. There's nothing you can do about it. But I always did the morgue calls at the hospital with somebody else because, we needed help. We got there. The nurses already had him in a bag. We didn't really see the physical body unless they opened him up later on to check the ID or whatever on the toe tag. But this one time, it was 10 o'clock at night. I was by myself. The call came in, and they're like, "Hey, David, we got a call, and you need to take this body to the morgue because it can't sit overnight, and you're the only one working tonight here." So I'm like, "Oh, great!" So I can't really say no because it's my boss, and so I didn't have any help. So I just did it, and I was telling myself in my mind, "Okay, you're gonna be fine. This is the first time you're doing it. Don't freak out." So I picked up the body. It was from the emergency room. Luckily, it was a really small person. I think it was a motorcycle accident or something. But I was taking him to the morgue. The elevator doors closed, and in my head, I was like, you're okay. It's fine. They're dead. There's nothing bad can happen here. Got up to the second floor, walked out. It was kind of eerie because, you ever seen like in a horror movie or like a scary movie where you look down a hallway and some of the lights are working, some aren't. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it's like flashing on and off. Like,
there's a little flicker. 'Cause, it's an older hospital. It wasn't remodeled at the time, so it was those reminders started getting in my mind. Okay, don't freak out. That looks a little creepy, but you got this. I opened up the morgue door. Was inside. I moved the body over to the tray, and I was walking out. I was like, okay, keep your cool. You're almost done. Don't freak out. I just felt like out of nowhere, like dead silence. I felt this rush of wind, like somebody blew like a 40-mile-an-hour wind at me. Like it was that powerful. It almost knocked me back. And I was like, what was that? Like it just whisked by my head. And so I freaked out so bad. I slammed the morgue door. I didn't even lock it up. I don't think. I just ran for the stairs. I was like, I'm not waiting for the elevator. I just got so freaked out. And then from that night, I was like, I'm never doing this alone again.
oh my gosh,
So
that's
it
good.
was creepy. It was creepy, man.
Well, I know what you're saying there. You totally know that everything's fine, yet your mind, I think it's honestly your mind playing tricks on you.
It could be, yeah. That's true.
I've been reading about the placebo effect and how they use it almost in like SEAL training. They use it because it's so hard to get past this training, like for buds, their weekly training. And what they do is they just keep you up, no sleep, keep you going constantly, and it wears down your body, but it wears down your mind even more. Like, I can't do this. I can't. You can't let yourself get into a negative mindset because you're more likely to fail. And they found that if they actually teach these soldiers that are students, I guess, they would be trying to get into the Navy SEALs. If they teach them about these tools, these positive tools like mind tools, small goals, incremental goals. Okay, I need to get to lunch. Now I need to get to dinner. Basically, you're just doing push-ups and jumping jacks and runs on the beach.
Right.
And you just have to like say, okay, as soon as I'm done, I just got to get through this next mile. And it's a lot easier than I got to get through Hell Week all week. Yeah. And I feel like in a lot of ways, the mind does work so well with just sort of tricking yourself into doing it more. Like the same can be said for working out. If you tell yourself you're going to do 10, you can do 10. But if you tell yourself you can do 13, you probably can do 13.
That's true.
So
That's
there's
true.
Within reason, there's certain days, certain times, certain mindset. And so with the ghost thing, I think some of it, a lot of it is mental, but it's still freaky. It's really freaky to feel like, especially when not only am I am I feeling weird? There's dead bodies all over the place. Like I'm pushing a dead body.
Right, right. And and that could lead to. I mean, it could have been an anxiety episode. It could have been some kind of anxiety thing, or a lot of times the mind causes physical symptoms. Especially if you have anxiety, you get physical symptoms, sweaty palms. You start breathing heavy. You feel like you're gonna have a heart attack, but you physiologically your body is actually healthy, and it's not. It's just a mental game,
Yeah.
like you said, and that's very true. The placebo effect definitely works. It's just we call that in psychology. They're coping mechanisms. They're healthy coping mechanisms that keep you driving forward. And it's funny because like a lot of people, I feel, could do a lot more, could accomplish a lot more, could strive for better, do better things, but they don't step outside that comfort zone. Then they say, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's not that you can't do it. It's you're not pushing harder.
Yeah. And I've really taken that very seriously. And I'm not talking about hippie stuff. I'm just talking about not being negative, being positive. And if it's breaking it down to something as simple as, lifting some weight or something, just knowing that you can do it. And for me, like running, last night I ran to the studio from my house.
Right.
And because my van was at the studio. So it's only 1.8 miles, but I don't run that often. And when I do, I go maybe a mile. So just having that in my mind that I'm not going to stop. I'm going to go from my house to the studio nonstop. And you know what? I wasn't even that winded. I wasn't even that sweaty. But today my legs are really sore. So I know I worked, but it goes to say like what you're talking about with in regard to the idea that when you don't step outside your comfort zone,
right,
you get weaker. Not often do you even stay the same. And I always try to push something along. Like I'm doing this talk in San Diego coming up. Actually, this is going to be airing Friday. So the very next night, the very next day in the afternoon, I'm at San Diego Music Thing.
Right.
At the I think it's at the Sheraton Hotel. And I'm doing a talk. And it was something that was definitely is outside my comfort zone. Right. But I felt like, that's a challenge. That's an experience that's terrifying in a lot of ways and brings me those anxiety attacks. It's my nervous system attacking me. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, I want to grow as a person. And if I'm really, really bad at it, at least I tried it and I can move on. If I'm decent at it, maybe I get better. It's like this radio show, this podcast. I'm not the best host. I mean, I'm not the most interesting person, but there's different people out there. There's different people out there that will click to me in ways that other people just won't at all be interested in what I have to say. But true. At the same time, I want to get better at communicating, better at doing this show, without, obviously taking it so serious that I'm overproducing, over planning. It's not real anymore. I'm following an outline. Like it's not that kind of thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if you're doing a history lesson or if you're very regimented in your topics. But for this, it's more just about discovering, like what I talk about with Best Life. But as a psychologist, I mean, obviously the placebo, you've studied that stuff all the time.
I studied that extensively. A lot in my undergraduate studies as well. I have a master's degree in marriage family therapy, but it does cover a lot of things. We studied psychopharmacology, psychiatric drugs and their interactions with the brain, different disorders, how they affect, the distinction between the physiological and the biological and the mental and how that intertwines and how it separates. So, I mean, there's a lot there. And it's funny because a lot of times people will come to me and be like, you're a therapist, right? Yeah. You can give me advice then, right? No. Therapist's job is not to give you advice. It's very simple. What we do is help you walk through a journey, a life discovery, a way of helping you reach self-awareness, so you can look outside yourself in an unbiased way, and maybe you can see yourself in a new light, in a different point of view, and we can be like, you know what, life isn't black and white. There isn't one or two ways to look at something. There's 3, 5, there's infinite ways to look at this, and it's all how your mindset is. Well, how's your attitude, which shapes your actions and which shape your behaviors. It's just it's as simple as that, really.
That's interesting. I mean, it seems it makes sense. It's like you're almost an outside analyst. You sort
Right.
of you're a consultant for the business of their actual psyche and their life and their nervous, their I don't know, the brain functions in a way, not in a mechanical way, but just in the way they put things together. You can maybe help them come to a place of understanding, and that's kind of what you're saying.
It's true.
A lot of is it similar to like what news anchors do when they talk about a story and they have like guys on that are analysts, even though most of that's all BS. That's probably BS, but in the same way, you can sort of like dissect an idea, in this case, a patient's life, and point them into new directions.
I look at the brain kind of like an onion. It's just got so many multiple layers. There's so many ways you can look at it, and it's just like, even though it's similar, it's way different. There's just so many different possibilities and outcomes that can come, and it's all case by case basis. We don't like to lump people in boxes and say, hey, you know what, you're just this disorder, and there's nothing we can do for you. There's people that are in between disorders. There's people that maybe have criteria of a mental disorder, but they don't have quite enough, the 4 or 5 that you need. So you have symptoms of a disorder. It doesn't mean you have that disorder. There's a lot of controversy that's surfaced about the DSM and the diagnostical statistical manual for mental disorders.
Okay,
and that's another issue,
because it seems like there's an infinite amount of colors on the spectrum. I mean, there are broad brush colors, primary colors, yellow, green, red, blue. But, that's your normal, like, okay, you're bipolar. Okay, that's that. But then there's so much in between that, right? That's what you're saying. There's like, not everybody sees the same ghost. Not everybody sees the same, whatever.
And
Rorschach test.
And that's what makes, exactly. That's a funny test. It's actually not as used as much anymore, but it's a good one. I like it.
Kind of an old school thing. What's the main? School. I mean, it's assumed that it's like, okay, if you don't see what everybody else sees, you're crazy, or it says this about you. But what's the main idea behind that? Yeah. Elaborate.
We have we have a main test that we kind of give people. I don't administer it. You have to have a certain certification or PhD or something, which I don't hold. But it's called the MMPI, which stands for the Minnesota Mental Status Examination Psychological
Minnesota.
Status.
Why?
Minnesota? I think the test was developed in a university in Minnesota.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That's my understanding. But it's a very popular test. It's kind of pricey to get, but if you have insurance, you can pay for it. But it's pretty much asks you about 400 or 500 questions, and it's pretty cool because it discerns for if you're trying to lie. Like, let's say, okay, I'm going to take this test. I'm going to make sure that I don't seem crazy, so that they don't, diagnose me for this. Or they try to diagnose for something. What we do is with that test, there's secrets hidden within that test that we're looking for a pattern of how you're answering these questions, so that we can say, okay, this person is lying. He's not being honest, because how can he answer this question this way and then another question another way? So there's cool ways to get around that. So it's pretty effective. It's pretty efficient. It's used in this country regularly. In other parts, I'm not sure if it's worldwide, but it's a very helpful tool, and we use that for assessments for just the basic, like, let's see if you have a serious mental condition. That's just to start. It's not what everybody uses, but that's a pretty specific one for sure.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of test is that? It's nothing like the Rorschach test.
No, it's just it's multiple choice, like
questions. So question answer.
Questions. Ask you everything A through Z about your life and your friends and how you view the world.
So it's very kind of basic, and it gets into probably
exactly
religion, politics,
right?
Anything that makes up who we are. I mean,
exactly, or human existence. Anything that has to. It talks about how do you feel about death? How do you feel about life? Do you think about what do you think about?
Yeah. What do you think about all day?
I know, right? It's like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
No, it's funny because I remember I took the MMPI for fun. I mean, as in our training, we had to take it ourselves. And I remember I accidentally scored it wrong, and I had the same scale as Charles Manson, and I was like, this can't be
Uh-oh.
right. So I made a mistake. Obviously, I
And
was
death
pretty
does
young.
not bother
So
you.
no, it doesn't. But no, yeah, I'm pretty. I mean, I think I scored high for anxiety, which runs in my family. So
Yeah.
I have personally battled anxiety for quite some time, but I was actually able to counsel myself and overcome it. It's been a long road, but it was
Self-counseling, man. There you go.
self-counseling works.
How much do
So,
you charge yourself?
I don't know. That's a
That's
good
awesome,
question.
dude. I know a buddy that he had asthma and
Okay.
he wanted to be in the Navy SEALs, and
Okay.
so he literally, in process of training for the Navy SEALs and in Hell Week and even just beyond that, he would
Yeah.
he would still get attacks, asthma attacks, but he would literally be able to mentally make them go away. Like,
Dude, that's pretty cool.
it's insane. Yeah. And he's a totally mellow,
Yeah.
guy. So
I mean, I consider myself a pretty calm guy, but it's funny because when anxiety hits, it's kind of like it's a random occurrence. Like I could be driving in the car, and all of a sudden I feel like I can't breathe. I'm getting a heart attack, and I think I'm dying, and I'm not.
yeah.
So, but I learned that in school, is what they taught us in my training, is that sometimes anxiety comes later on. It's an after effect of putting your body through a lot of stress, through a lot of strife, through a lot of trauma. You might not. It's like at the time of the trauma, you have so much adrenaline, you're not really feeling what's happening around you. And then all of a sudden, a week or two later, it'll hit you like a ton of bricks out of nowhere. That's pretty much anxiety and how it occurs, what it comes from. It comes from built up of stress that isn't released. And then later on, it just hits you randomly. Well, you could be on the couch watching TV, and it'll hit you because you might have been stressed out 2 weeks before that or something.
Well, I haven't had too much of that, but when one of the trips I was in Mexico, I was in a hotel. It was our last day. I mean, we were going home the next day. Yet I was basically, it was like a panic kind of, not panic, but it was more like stress. And what were you saying you were using to describe other ways, other things that happened? Like I was like really like just
sweaty palms,
super worried. I wasn't sweaty palms. It was like more like my heart hurt. Like I was
racing?
super sad.
Okay.
I don't know if that's like the same thing.
I mean, if you feel like anxious, like you feel like
super anxious, like I could not relax.
Doom?
I could not relax.
Okay.
Impending doom. I think
Okay,
I was
yeah,
just
that's
because
anxiety.
of that whole like tour had been
right.
just super stressful.
Yeah,
because it's Mexico. There's a couple other South Americans. It's just like very, in a lot of ways, you could be harmed and killed in some respects. It's not like we're ever necessarily having close calls, but it could just happen, and especially in Mexico. So I think I was just really kind of freaked out, even though nothing happened. We were fine, aside from being ripped off. But that's separate and totally other stories. But I felt super just uneasy.
Sounds like anxiety to me.
It was anxiety. That's what it was.
Well, it's an episode. It doesn't mean you have general anxiety.
No, I didn't, and it was just like one
Yeah.
time, or it was like a period of a few days, and then it was fine. Once I got home, I was fine, and I travel all over the world, and I have like homesickness every now and then.
Okay.
More of it's just a conscious. I miss, my family, and but with that being said, I don't know.
I got a random topic to throw in real quick.
All right, go ahead.
It's going to tie in your buddy's asthma and Mexico.
Okay.
So when I was a child, I grew up with asthma. I had asthma diagnosed at 3 years old. And so my mom had me on steroids when I was young. The medications are all steroid based. I was using the inhalers and the powders, whatever you call it. And I remember I did that for years. And then all of a sudden, I think I was about 8 or 9 years old. My grandma came in and she's like, you know what? We got this stuff from Mexico that everybody's saying is curing everybody's asthma. And I'm like, what is it? And they're like, oh, it's a water salamander oil extract. I'm like, you want me to drink oil from a water salamander? Okay. So it's called jarabe de jolotes. And in English, I guess you call it an ajolote or an axolote. I would say. And it's funny. It's endangered in the wild now, and they're reproducing in Mexico. But this stuff, I took it for about 7-8 months, and I kid you not, I got cured by the age of 10 from asthma. I never took an inhaler or any kind of steroid again.
No shit.
And I was, yeah, I'm not kidding.
Okay,
you.
so
And
what was salamander oil?
yeah, it's a very hidden knowledge, but a lot of people in Mexico know about it, and it's called jarabe de jolotes. It's kind of hard to get a hold of. People can have it as pets. Check it out. They sell it online, but it's illegal to have a pet water salamander axolote in California. It's actually illegal
Of course.
to own it as a pet.
Do you think that has to do with the healthcare situation?
I mean, think about it. When they
big pharmaceutical companies, big pharma.
I think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of natural cures out there that actually work, and there's countless hundreds, thousands of people that say this cures, but the FDA is like, oh, it's natural, that's dangerous. But what's not dangerous is this chemical we produce in a lab, and that might cure you better. So,
well, let's talk healthcare, because let me just give you my situation, and you can maybe, I don't know, enlighten us on some of this stuff.
Sounds
good. I'm self-employed, and my wife is employed, but it only works part-time because they won't do full-time, because then they have to pay benefits. So it's like it's one of those things. She teaches at a college, but
I hate that when they
so we're paying for our own insurance, and
we
have to have a certain kind for the the baby, and
right.
I'm on like the lowest one where I can't go. I can go into an emergency room.
Right.
I can go in from 3:30 to like 8 or something like
that. All right.
So lame. It's group health, but it's like the lowest rung group health. Anyway, whatever. I'm not complaining about, I'm not dying and I'm not homeless, so everything's cool. But I am complaining about the healthcare situation in a lot of ways. So anyway, I'm on the lowest thing, but we pay monthly probably almost $900. It's probably a little under $900 a month.
Insane.
It's insane, and it's almost as low as we can be, and without having insurance. I think the lowest we could possibly be is if my wife goes down one more, and we keep Sailor at our daughter at one.
Right.
But it would be one more, and then she wouldn't be able to get any chiropractic or acupuncture, which. I can't do really anything without doing a copay. So
that sucks.
So $900. That's our next biggest bill aside from our mortgage, which is more than that. But just the fact that healthcare, something you don't actually usually use. I mean, we have been with our daughter just because she's so young. So we take her in, but even some of the things she needs, we have to do a copay. So it's just. It's a racket for one. It's this imaginary thing you pay for, you keep paying for, and if you have to really use it, life sucks anyway, because it's like your health and like they make, I don't know. It's I don't know what can be done. I don't know a whole lot about Obamacare. I hear obviously the progressives love it and the conservatives don't, but. It's all BS as far as until I actually can see what it's doing. I'm sure, given Obama's track record, it's completely for the insurance companies. I read a few Rolling Stone articles about healthcare law, and it was pretty shitty for the people, except for a few things. The thing where you can't be kicked off your insurance if you have pre-existing cancer or other thing. But anyway. Tell me, what's your take on this whole situation?
Well, I definitely think that there's a lot of things going on with the healthcare system specifically that a lot of people are probably not even aware of, just because usually in the media we're usually fed a little bits and pieces of information, probably half truths, maybe not the whole truth. And let's throw in at the end.
At best. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And then at the end, we'll find out what Hillary Duff is up to or what Lindsay Lohan's doing or whatever. So it's very ridiculous how our news actually is working. But if and that's a problem. I think a lot of people in this country We're so busy with the 9 to 5 grind, and we don't have really a lot of time to sit down and let's look up and read a bill. Let's read what Obamacare really is, what the healthcare system is actually going to be doing for us, what it's going to be not doing for us. And I think it's pretty ridiculous. There's so many other countries, examples like Canada or anywhere else in the European Union where, healthcare is either free or very, very affordable, and you get the best of the best. And I just don't understand how our healthcare system could be so broken.
It's a catch-22 for me because
right.
If the market was actually free, if we weren't held down by the Fed, and if the government wasn't giving no bid contracts to all these giant corporations and subsidizing oil and energy
right.
and paying farmers not to grow corn or not to grow whatever it is that they don't want them to grow, it just seems like it's rigged in that respect from the very
right.
beginning. But healthcare it's hard. I mean, what I want to know is how important is keeping true to like our capitalist roots. A lot of Republicans are very proud of being capitalists, but the thing
right.
is so are Democrats. Democrats are capitalists too. So all this social stuff seems to be just politics.
Yeah, and it's been said countless times before that this political system almost seems like it's running as a game to distract us from maybe what's really going on behind the scenes, what's really happening in the world. I feel like the Democrats and Republicans can fight and sit all day and get a nice fat paycheck at the end of the day, but who really suffers at the end of the day? It's Americans, and we're the hardworking class. There's over 400 million people in this country that still are struggling with jobs. It's just ridiculous that we are not able to take care of our own people first before, it's obviously the best interests are where the money trail is and not where the people's needs or interests are. So there's very scary times. I mean, with this Obamacare coming up and getting signed into law, hopefully people start reading what's going on. But it's interesting because I read under the Affordable Health Care for American Act, it was originally proposed 2009, and it was called the HR 3200 bill. And they changed it recently. Let's rename it to 3962. So it's called the HR 3962. I encourage everybody who's listening to look it up and really read what the bill is saying. But it's definitely, we're losing our freedom. I mean, people are complaining about gun control laws and all that, like not having freedom to bear arms. But there's things proposed in this healthcare act that's talking about implantable microchip devices for patient identification systems.
Like mandatory?
They don't word it mandatory, but they say patients must receive some kind of identification device like that goes into the computer, either through I guess like a bracelet or a card, or through an implantable class 2 device, they call it, which they didn't really specify, but they actually labeled it as it's a class 2 implantable device.
Call me crazy, but couldn't you sort of like, I don't know, hold your health hostage? Say like, if you want this healthcare, this coverage, for this price, or even for free if it's a situation like that, like Medicare or whatever, Medicaid. I'm not too up on the details,
right.
But if it's a situation like that, wouldn't they be like, okay, if you want it for free or this 50% off, you just
right.
need this ID chip to go into your hand or your arm.
It's funny you say that.
Some people are going to be like, I don't care. Fine. Here you go. I just got free healthcare. What's up? Something like that. But
no, it's funny you say that because that's exactly what I've found is that they want to have benefits for people who I guess
status that comply, get their go ahead. What else? What else? This is crazy.
This is crazy stuff.
They can do anything on those chips. They can reprogram those chips to all of a sudden track you every minute where you are, right? Am I correct? If you're a fugitive, all of a sudden they know exactly where you are. I'm not saying that criminals shouldn't be caught and busted, but it just seems like it's going to be abused just like the NSA powers.
Right. And the
Yeah.
war of the future is going to be a bio-cybernetic thing. I mean, everybody's talking about Google Glass. Now we could see if somebody has a criminal record by a facial scan on our face, and it's a glasses, a computer on our face.
So
They're talking about
if a police officer
right,
sees you and has those glasses on,
right,
and you have outstanding parking tickets, and he's bored, he's going
right,
to say, "Hey, you didn't pay your tickets," and he's going to go make sure you
exactly,
do, or
exactly.
give you another ticket for not having the tickets or having a outstanding warrant, or a bench warrant or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
I see it. I see it. It
you
happens
have
now,
that.
even without Google Glass. It happens with just innocent
Right.
people being frisked in New York. Stop and frisk.
Yeah, what surprises me too is like I went to Disney World in Florida, and in order to get inside the park, they have to fingerprint. You have to put in your fingerprint, and
What?
I'm like, dude, what kind of? Obviously, they would test it in Florida, right? No offense to Florida listeners out there, but
Of course.
Florida's not known for mostly intelligent.
Well, they test
origin.
They
But
test. Yeah, they
you
do
know,
these
they
tests.
test things there. And right now, I remember going there and I said, I'm an American citizen. I have a right to refuse to get my thumbprint scanned. I don't know where that information's going. You're not
Exactly.
giving. I asked them, I'm like, where does this ID go? And they're like, it doesn't go anywhere. Don't worry about it. Everybody's doing it. Just do it. That's
Just
what the
do
lady
it.
was telling me at the front.
Everybody's doing it. Just do
So,
it.
so I was like, that's not a good reason. So, I pulled out my wallet. I'm like, look, in the back of this ticket, it says you can show your ID. I had to wait 15 minutes to
They-
finally get let in the park. They finally let me in, and then I had a guy following me around for like 30 minutes. So
They make it really hard
Yeah.
through intimidation, and it's the same at the
It's true.
TSA. If you
It's
don't
true.
want to go through the scanner in the airport, is they make you feel like you're a criminal.
You got
and-
DNA checkpoints, It's crazy.
Yeah, and they have these police checkpoints in some cities, some areas where they're just checking people. And
Right.
how is that? It's like you haven't done anything wrong, yet you're being harassed by the law. All
Right.
for what? For our freedom? No, I don't think so. It's
Yeah.
the lack of. That brings me, the fingerprint thing reminds me of the iPhone, the new iPhone.
Right.
I heard that, I don't know if it's the new iPhone
iPhone 5S.
5S, and then there's
yeah.
a 5C. So there's two coming out. One's cheaper. The C is the
'Cause
cheaper one, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true.
So the new iPhone comes with an 8 megapixel camera, a 1.5 micron pixel pitch. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that one means either.
Dual LED flash. I think it's probably got so you can use the flash on
Okay.
face personal
Right.
yeah, forward-facing pictures. F2.2 aperture, which is nice. That's very low. That means
Yeah,
you can get that sort of depth, that in focus, and then the background's way out of focus. The lower the aperture is, the more blurry the background gets. But anyway,
Yeah.
matrix metering AF. That's just more camera stuff. 64-bit processor, so it's just getting bigger and better. 250 hours battery life, but this whole fingerprint thing, like I don't know a whole lot about this. I just heard that they were going to use a fingerprint as a way to get into your phone. But we all know that Apple gives information to
Right.
the U.S. government, including, but not only the NSA, probably
Right,
the
exactly.
FBI, the CIA.
Right.
And so it just scares me. And I don't think I'll be getting any of those phones unless you can somehow not use that. Like if you can
Right.
turn that off.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually looking that up because my laptop, my HP Windows 7 laptop, actually has a fingerprint reader, and I deliberately uninstalled the software right away because I'm like, I'm not scanning my thumbprint on this laptop. I don't know where it's gonna go,
Yeah.
But it's just even though people argue and say, you know what, they have your information anyway, but why enable it? Why go along with the status quo?
Yeah,
Why can't we just stand up and say, hey, you know what, just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should, That's like, it's just an excellent example. It's like, why? Why do we have to do that? I mean, there's no privacy anymore with Facebook and now the thumbprint readers. You can leave your thumbprint on a glass. Somebody could make a copy of that when you leave the bar, and then you come back and it's like they're unlocking your phone. They can get anything from you, So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And it's,
Yeah.
to me, I know I probably annoy people because I talk about this NSA thing and the NDAA and
Right.
and I follow a lot of Twitter people that do news stories about it. So I'm into it because I
Right.
care. Like I feel already that I'm treated like a criminal just because of tattoos and the way I
Oh
look.
yeah,
And the thing
that's
is
true.
people are nice everywhere and people are assholes everywhere. It's
It's
just
true.
it's not any one look or one thing.
Right.
People that look like complete garbage sometimes are the nicest people you'll ever meet with no teeth, no front teeth. You know, you
It's
just never
true.
know.
It's true. You don't
Um,
judge.
yeah, with
Yeah.
I just it's freaky. The iPhone it gets worse and worse, and don't be complacent. You know, don't,
Yeah. Exactly.
just because you yes I'm a very public person online, and I've got all the Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and all this stuff. But when I'm in my personal life, I don't want people to know where I am. I don't want the police to be able to just look up my location on my phone. I'm not saying I'm doing anything illegal or not. That has
Right.
nothing to do with it. It's not an excuse. And people say, "Oh, well, would you do it if you could save a terrorist attack from happening?" Well, the thing
Yeah.
is I honestly I think the damage that's done to Americans on a daily basis is far outweighs
Yeah.
just one attack. Of course, every life is precious. I don't want any attacks,
Right.
and I think if if the U.S. government really cared about our security and being attacked at home, uh, one 9/11 never would have happened because the
Right.
information was there. They had
Right.
they even had William Binney was a whistleblower at the NSA, and he
Right.
actually made a program that was called Stellar Wind that
Okay.
would pick up overseas communications with keywords, and it would hold sort of the information in a trust, so that they could get a warrant for it. But it was much more directed towards terrorism. But what we have now is all these different facilities the NSA's built, the Homeland Security's built to collect
Right.
everything. So we've got everything instead of the stuff directed towards terrorist attacks. And they used the fear, they used terrorist attacks
Propaganda.
as propaganda as a way to make us go, "Oh, yeah, we need to just let them do whatever it is they need to do because it's
Right.
our safety and that's what's most important."
Right.
I'm sorry, you don't see people revolting against their tyrannical governments because it's the safe way to go.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it's not safe to live a free life, to be free. You have to speak out. You have to stick your neck out. You have to fight. You have to
Right.
fight for what you feel is right. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. That's the problem.
true.
Because, you know what's good for the group isn't always good for the individual.
Right.
And I'm an individualist at heart, and but at the same time, I don't want to, out of my own selfishness, I don't want to infringe on other people. So I think it's just all a balance of respect and understanding. It all comes from from good parenting
Yeah.
and
It's true.
but you're always gonna have these struggles, these larger world struggles, and all we can do is really be vocal.
Right.
But I know what you're saying. You got jobs. People got jobs out there. They got to provide for their family. They can't afford to be too vocal out online and then get fired by their job. It's just making it harder and harder.
Right.
But
Right.
if you feel it's right, and it really is,
Right.
you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And the problem is we can't let the government or corporations walk all over us individuals just because they're so big. It's impossible to say no.
Right.
No on Syria. It's working. Keep saying no on Syria. Tell your congressmen, tell your leaders,
Yeah.
put it out there. Talk to your friends about it. You don't have to have some big argument about politics. Just say, hey, we understand, but there's wars and wars and wars for centuries and centuries and centuries in the Middle East, and it's going to continue. It always has been. It always will be, and it's not the U.S.'s job to keep putting boots on the ground, missiles in the air, bombs in the cities, killing innocent people. People will be killed, period. Innocent or not, people will be killed. No on Syria. With that being said, thank you so much for joining. Would you want to do some overtime?
I'm down, man. I'm full of information. So
couple minutes. Yeah, we're gonna come back and do it. I want to just thanks for joining us on Adobe.com. We got a lot coming up. I got some new guests. I'm going to be on tour though, so I'm going to try to do a few shows from the road. I'm heading San Diego, 14th September. So if you're listening to this later, you've missed it. But I'm doing a talk and a solo show. Starts at 12 noon, and my talk is at 3:30. So come on early. Come see me. It's $10 for the solo show. I think if you want both, it's $25. I think it's a bargain at $25. And I'm heading to Texas. I'm doing the Elm Street Music and Tattoo Convention. I'm playing an after-show party with Drag the River that night at 3 Links. I'm doing a solo show. And then I'm doing private shows all week. Going to be playing for some people in their houses, and they're paying me to come and basically entertain them for an evening. And that's going to be really interesting and really fun to kind of get one-on-one time with some of the music fans. And then last but not least, I just wanted to say I'm going to be opening for Five Iron Frenzy in Dallas. That's Sweet. Dallas at the House of Blues. And then in Houston at the House of Blues. And the dates are Friday the 21st. No, 20th. 20th and 21st. So, with that being said, we're going to be hitting South America with MXPX. And, I got to fix it. It's 20th and 21st. Okay, I was right. Dallas, Houston. So, come on, see that show. I'm going to be playing solo stuff. Obviously, MXPX acoustic, that kind of thing. We didn't even talk about your music stuff. Maybe we'll get into some of that on overtime.
That'd be cool. That'd be awesome.
I'm heading back down to South America. That is a stressful situation, no matter what. And I love it down there. I really love it.
I'll give you some free therapy, man. Don't worry. Some free therapy sessions for you.
I need it.
I can do it, man. I've done it for a lot of family and friends, so I'm down.
Well, I don't know if I really need it. For me, I use it as a way to better myself. Like, why not? Yeah. Who am I to say that I'm the best I can be? I'm not the best I can be.
That's true.
And I feel like I never will be. And at some point, I'm going to start going the other way when my body is failing. And
your mind starts thinking about death, and like you start turning crazy.
Well, I'm not, I do think about death, and especially since my dog, my poor Allie, Allie girl passed last year. And that was seriously, like you were saying, it was an eye opener. It was the closest I've been to death. I mean, all my grandparents have gone, but I wasn't around. I didn't go to any of their funerals.
Okay.
They were all out of town, or I was actually out of town when my recent grandma passed, my mom's mom. And so I've sort of missed a lot of that, even though it's happened around me. Friends have died, but it's always been just I'm not there,
Right. And it's like are you avoiding?
Not avoiding though. It's just I've been.
Okay, just
I don't know what you want to. I don't know if it's busy. We're all busy. I'm busy in a different way because I travel a lot.
Right.
And so I'm traveling, and I can't necessarily just. Well, for one, before everybody judges, I was not. It was only my grandma, and I was like on the other side of the world at the time. My other grandparents died long ago. So anyway, with that being said, my dog was definitely by far the heaviest, and in a lot of ways, I grew up and became an even, hopefully more introspective person. So
it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
With that being said, we can talk more about all this stuff. I want to talk about Masons, ghosts, more on maybe some of the microchip stuff, some of the iPhone 5 stuff.
Man. There's so much in this world going on it's funny. People, I've been blessed and lucky that I feel like I've had a lot of time in the world to research all this stuff. I have a presentation a PowerPoint that took me 3 years to complete.
Nice.
6 years worth of research. I've
Well,
got.
let's talk. Let's talk about all this on
So-
overtime. How about
Okay.
that? Thanks for joining me,
That's fine.
David Camarena. Everybody, what's your
All right.
Twitter?
Heart Like War.
Follow him on Twitter. Heart Like War. All right.
Twitter.com/Heart Like War. We're anywhere Heart Like War, you'll find it.
Cool. This is the Mike Herrera Hour. Thanks for joining. Join us on overtime. You know how to get there. Thanks. It's time to go home. Where are my friends? 'Cause it's that time. Yeah, it's that time again. Here we are. It's overtime. Mike Herrera Hour. Thanks for sticking around. We're going to talk about masonry. Not really masonry, but masons, ghosts.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We're going to talk about all that. I want to talk about that kind of stuff, like hidden secrets you were saying, and that's kind of redundant if you really think about it. But it makes it a little more mysterious. What's your take on masonry? You were talking about you kind of have some. You kind of have some interest, some insight. So, are you a mason?
I'll let it be known. I am not a mason.
I'll let it be known. Don't come after me.
But there are. My grandfather's brother, which I guess that makes him what? He's related to me. He was a 32nd degree Freemason, so he was second to the top in command. As high as, because the ranks of Masonry, the highest degree you can attain is the 33rd degree. Essentially, that's what they call it. And the reason why it's degrees is because they believe in sacred geometry, they call it, and they believe that Latin is the root of sacred knowledge. So a lot of their writings and old manuscripts, and they have inscriptions around the world. When you see Mason monuments, they exist because their logo is all over it. They do have sayings in Latin many times, maybe just to throw people off so they don't really understand the meanings of it. And it's a pretty confusing organization. It's very much a pyramid system. There's people who are first, second, third degree Masons that really don't know what's going on in the 32nd, 33rd degree. And it's funny because even within the lodges, there's a white lodge, there's a blue lodge, and if you're a 32nd or 33rd in a blue lodge, they still don't reveal as much information as they would in a white lodge. So there's all kinds of mystery and.
So is the white lodge? The white lodge is the best lodge, right?
The White Lodge, I believe, is the best one. It's the Scottish,
of course,
it's the Scottish,
and
rite,
it happens to be white.
Yeah, so it's very interesting though. But there's a lot of mystery, and a lot of people say, wait, that's a pretty good organization. I have a friend that's high up there in Masonry. He's not a bad guy. These are great people, and that could be true. I don't think that all Masons are bad people. I think there's a lot of good Masons out there. But the problem is the higher you get up, then the more you know what they're really doing at the top. It's an eye opener for sure, and it's a very interesting thing. It's not a religion, but they do worship and believe in destroying Christianity that's one of their main beliefs, actually.
Really?
It's I have a book, actually.
Why is that? Because they want the power? Is it a selfish thing, or is it to rid humanity of the non-true way of life? I don't know. Is it more of like a pagan thing with Masonry?
Well, it's pagan.
By pagan, I mean non-traditional, or I guess it would be theist. Is the single?
Well, how about
a single God?
Right. It's funny because when you're kind of usually it's bloodline. I mean, it's interesting. A lot of things in this country are bloodline, like the presidency. It was published in Time magazine that Bush was related to. I mean, Obama was related to Bush. He's like his ninth cousin.
How is this really?
So yeah, it was published. This was a known fact, and people don't.
They do. Yeah. Is this? Where can we find the info on this? Obama.
I dare anybody to Google this and just Google
Bush family.
Obama cousins with Bush, Time magazine, and you should. It's actually a picture. It's like a picture. If you look at the images,
can you believe Time magazine though?
I know, right? No, it's
very biased.
Historically, though, if you do research it, you do see that a lot of all the presidents have some kind of bloodline connection in some way or another. A lot of famous celebrities are related in some way. I mean, if you look at the red carpet, what it symbolizes a bloodline. It's red in color because it's like a red vein. It's a bloodline that bonds this whatever these people, are trying to do. And it's, if you look at it on a larger scale, I remember studying history of Western art in my undergraduate studies, and we're talking about propaganda and how, Egypt used to rule its people, or all these civilizations ruled their people. And the root of it was very much a pyramid system. You have people, a select few at the top running everything, and everybody beneath has a role to play and a job to play. And it's just the way it's always been. And that led me to this research of like, how does the world really run? What are Masons? Who are these people? What is the Federal Reserve? Who started that? And the more you start digging history and reading the layers, the more you realize a lot of stuff is connecting here.
Yeah, it seems like in almost everything there's symbols, there's symbolism. Right. There's the red carpet thing is really interesting. It's so obvious, yet it's right. It's right in front of your face. It's obvious.
Exactly.
But think about it, because we're not taught these things, because only the most trusted people get to know all the secrets of life, and not everybody knows all the secrets, but obviously there's varying degrees, like you're saying, and that's interesting. I mean, the pyramid thing is such a powerful symbol, a powerful symbol. It's
on the back of the dollar,
draped in mystery. Why is it on our dollar? What is the pyramids? What does Egypt have to do with anything American? That's why don't people ask? I mean, people do ask this, but there's so much. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that I've thought about and then I forget about it, and I haven't talked about it in such a long time. But it's just that is so interesting to me. The New World Order kind of stuff. Pyramids, the all-seeing eye, Oddfellows, Goodfellows, the local, different types of masonry groups. I mean, it's all based on this pyramid and brotherhood and fellowship. It's not just
secret handshakes.
It's not. It's rumored because there's truth to it.
Let me tell you a quick story, real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like my mom told us this when we were younger. She was like, I was almost in jail one time. I'm like, Mom, you're like the most like. I would never imagine you in jail. What did you do? What happened? And she said that she almost got thrown in jail because they went to Mexico and they were trying to bring my aunt here illegally to the United States. It wasn't my parents' idea. It was like, because I'm third generation, here now, but my grandparents were born and came from Mexico and they immigrated here. But some people in the family were like, we just have this aunt. Let's just bring her over. So they actually got caught at the border. And through like half of my uncles and a couple of my uncles and my grandfather in jail actually, and so what happened was they were only in prison for a few hours because they got bailed out because of the Mason connection. My grandfather said, "Hey, my brother is a high-ranking Mason," and so as soon as they said that, they made a few calls. And they got bailed out of jail, clean, and that's it. They were let go in a few hours. It was pretty crazy. And they said some guys just showed up in an SUV, dressed nicely, bailed them right out of jail. No questions asked. And then another time, my uncle here in America, he got arrested and he was doing, I don't know, drugs, prostitution, whatever. And same thing, like he was in jail one minute, the next minute his criminal record's clean, he's out of jail. No, he doesn't have to pay a dime because of the Mason connection. My grandfather has a letter and a ring, and he says if you're ever in trouble, you just present that, and it's above the law. You're free to go.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Okay, so there's gonna be people like, oh, that's bullshit. That's not real.
Yeah,
it really.
That's true.
I'm kind of inclined to believe that. Even I know you're a trustworthy person. I know you personally.
I know these are personal testimonies,
but I'd believe you. I mean, absolutely. I've been interested in this kind of stuff, and I've read a lot of stories, but I've never had any firsthand experiences at all. But it seems so evident that the pyramid system is really the basis of what we've built this whole civilization on. And the idea that isn't like the police isn't there like a police fraternal
code,
order of police officers or whatever, but is that connected also with the Masons?
I know that I know there's a lot of police officers that they
Are
say, hey,
Masons or
well, either that or they're taught or told if you see a car with Mason stickers and logos all over them, leave them alone because if you pursue them or ticket them, you're probably not going to be working for your local law enforcement agency.
wow.
So it's very interesting. I've heard a lot of stories of that. I mean, you see cars marked with the Mason logos all the time. I got followed by one. I mean, I'm not a paranoid person, but I could legitimately say one time I felt like that car was following me all day wherever I was driving. Wherever I parked, I would find the car parked out with the Mason logos on it. It was kind of strange. So
That is creepy.
it's very interesting. I mean, I'm pretty sound mind person, I would say. I'm not very I don't get obsessed with things. I don't have psychological disorder
Of
but
course.
it's interesting just to research and study these things and sometimes these experiences kind of push me into studying this because it happened to me firsthand through my family, through my experiences, and it's just led me to research this further and see what other truth can I uncover. There's a lot of secrecy behind it.
Yeah, and a
So,
buddy of mine is part of an order, let's just say, I don't know,
okay, it's fine.
whatever. And
Whatever
he
law.
is kind of crazy. Like he will drive 1,000 miles an hour, almost
Right.
like slamming into things, wrecking his car.
crazy.
Never gets caught for anything. I mean, he
course.
lives as if he has no fear. Like he's been to jail
Okay.
in the past,
Right.
but
Right.
now he just lives on pure adrenaline. Like he doesn't do drugs or anything like that. Like, he's just pure
Got it.
adrenaline junkie, and he'll drink energy drinks, and it
Just
makes
be
a lot of
hyped up.
sense if you have like a sense of security, a true sense, like things that other people don't know, and
Yeah, it's true.
it kind of makes sense. It's like okay, I see some patterns here, and he's very into his order, the fraternal order of whatever it is he's in. So
I mean, it's really funny because I mean, if you look at videos that are out there, I mean, the proof is there. It's not like people are making it up. But I remember watching this one interview with John Kerry and George Bush Jr. And they were asking him, what was your role in Skull and Bones Society? What's up with that? Is there a secret handshake or a code? What was that? What is Skull and Bones? And every time they asked him about it, they would say, oh, I wish there was something I can manifest, but I can't talk about that because it's a secret. And they both identically answered the same in two different interviews that I saw. And they both laugh it off and chuckle, and then they just go on to their spiel or agenda, whatever they're trying to, prove or talk about, an election or whatever. But it's very interesting to see that they deflect something so secret so quickly. And if you research Skull and Bone Society, research Yale University and the mysteries of who are these leaders that are going in and being recruited as members, and now they're the most powerful people in the world. Why is that?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's for a reason, for sure. I mean,
Of course, yeah. And I mean, I encourage a lot of people to go out there and just research it for yourself. I mean, never take anybody's word for it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff on the internet that's definitely false and incorrect. So you use your best judgment. And
yeah, I was just
you
gonna
know,
say there's a lot of disinformation out there, but
there's a lot of
have
so
you
you
seen?
gotta
Yeah. Have you seen that video with like Beyonce and Jay-Z being part of the New World Order and like
yeah.
Rihanna? Like, come on, really? They're just like musicians. Like
That's
they're
true.
in. I mean, maybe they're in some sort of like fraternal order, but there's no way they're like possessed by the devil.
Well,
Like
I
it's
don't know.
probably just like they're into astrological signs. They're into mysticism.
I go by evidence, honestly. I guess that
Where's the
are
evidence?
artists.
Is there any?
But Jay-Z is interesting because he is a Mason.
Yeah, that's what I figured. He's a Mason, but how high up?
Exactly. I do not know.
Just because he's
I
a
have no
Mason
idea.
doesn't mean
Right.
he's like.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
He's a talented rapper, but
There is a video though where he says in an interview, and I have it. I can show it to you. It's not hidden knowledge. He says, I get possessed by the spirits regularly, and like he just blatantly is telling this backstage to somebody, which is really interesting. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, why would a sane person or artist say that? If it wasn't. I mean, is he just trying to be funny?
No, I mean there could be a lot of reasons and a lot of meanings
kinda
behind
weird.
that statement because I could say that and maybe I was just high.
Right, that's true.
And I'm
That's
just
true. You
feeling
could have been
really-
on something.
feeling really good, and just be like, you just go and you're just being the artist that he is. He's
Yeah. And that could be anecdotal. That could be like weak evidence.
Yeah.
And then but then I found another picture, and he's wearing a sweatshirt that says "Do what thou wilt," in quotations, which is a direct quote from Aleister Crowley, his book, The Book of the Law. And I don't know if you have any knowledge in Aleister Crowley or The Book of the Law, but it's
these like Satanists, right?
Yeah, it's a precursor to the Satanic Bible.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah, he wrote the Bible as well, right?
It's kind of interesting. I don't know why Jay-Z would be fronting some occult mysticism, so it's kind of interesting.
Maybe somebody gave it to him. Probably not.
That's true
Probably
too.
not.
That's
but
true
you
too.
never know, because people give me shit. I don't understand all the time.
You know what? I'm a firm believer that we shouldn't judge people, and we should just take things with a grain of salt. And I really am a big enforcer of, I will never, even though I present all this information, I never want to tell a person what to believe. This is what I find to be true for myself, and if you think different, that's okay. We are all created differently, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all different. We all have happiness.
Exactly.
Our road to happiness is different. Happiness is different for everybody, just like success is different for everybody. And if you're used to something, and it's taken away, just human nature is to not be happy. So I mean, there's just so many factors. That's not true. Just what you have and how much money you make, and if you are married or have kids. I mean, there's just so many factors. Some people like video games. Some people hate them. Right. Some people love music, punk rock. Some people hate punk rock. It just is, some people like to do drugs, others don't.
Right.
But
exactly.
I think just a mutual respect for life is a good place to start. And it doesn't seem like this pyramid thing really takes that into effect. It's more like, these are my subjects, I will crush them, and if I don't, somebody else will. So I may as well be the tyrant.
I mean, I also keep in mind that without order, there is chaos, and there has to be some order established. That's true, but there's possibility for abusing power, of course, if you're up there.
Well, possibility is it's like a no-brainer.
I'm sure
it just happens and happens and happens everywhere you look. But when it comes to the, I can't remember what we were just talking about. The
I don't know.
Alex Crowley.
Aleister Crowley.
Alistair.
He kind of created. He sparked a lot of things. It's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just. But the thing is, as a Christian, you grow up thinking completely different than what the Satanic Bible really teaches. And I'm not at all promoting the Satanic Bible. I'm just saying, like, we're not really told what's in there. We're told no matter what, stay away. Don't inquire. Don't look into anything. It'll get you. The spirit will get you. You'll be possessed.
Yeah, that's
so
wrong.
That's my problem is with a lot of not only religion, but also blind patriotism. I'm a patriot because I love my country. I respect those that have served our country, including my dad. And
definitely
including my father-in-law, and so many have paid the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate price, and this is still 9/11, and those people didn't know they were going to die, but some of those firemen knew it was a fucking possibility, and they still ran up those stairs because but I don't think that makes the true heroes. Absolutely, it doesn't make you an American or not, because humans, good humans, there is no nation for a good human. There's just only good people, and there's bad people, and that's why it's just so sad to see, things like the Syria thing, where you don't know what's really happening. They're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to tell you that it's in their best interests to have us bomb that country, so it disrupts the deals they have going with other non-allies, other enemies of U.S. interests, and
it's interesting.
So they're not going to tell you the truth about all this, and so it's sad to see.
It's almost like we're fighting for the oil because we're not backed by gold anymore. The U.S. dollar is very weak, and we're backed by oil now.
Yeah, it's all like we got to keep deals going through American money so that we basically get the middleman fee. And,
I
and there's
mean,
so many
yeah,
more issues than just oil and just energy, but
yeah,
energy
that's
is
true.
definitely a big one. But with that comes all the infrastructure companies, the Halliburtons. Not only does Halliburton get paid huge amounts to get the war pieces ready, they clothe our soldiers, they arm our forces, they do everything in between. They not only do that, but they also clean up the countries we destroy,
Yep.
and they put in infrastructure that we blew up. So they blow. You have these big contractors. They blow up a country with the U.S. military and coalition forces, and then they go and build it. It's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, this is the
It
best,
makes
the best business ever. Is you get paid to destroy something, and you get paid to also fix it. And it goes in cycles, and you move to the next thing.
right. War is money, man. It just makes money
War is money.
for those companies and
And
whatever their best interests are.
yeah,
I mean, it amazes me. I mean, did you heard of the PNAC group, right? The think tank that was created in 1996 by the American government to plan basically where our country is going to be heading with the military. Are you there?
yeah, I'm here. That was
Okay.
you sent me that file.
Oh, sorry. Sorry
It's all
about
right.
that. I didn't know that was going to happen. But the Project for the New American Century, or PNAC for short, I don't know. Have you heard about that one?
Elaborate, not so far. But
Okay.
I
Well,
could.
it was formed in 1996. They stopped it in 2006, and it's basically an American think tank. It was based in Washington D.C. And it's an organization that sets foreign policy in other countries. What are we doing with the military? What's the plan? They were publishing all kinds of stuff that was just very shady. A lot of controversies were surrounding it. People who had the time to look it up. But they actually stated, let me pull it up here. I have it. That in Section 5 of Rebuilding America's Defenses, they called it, entitled "Creating Tomorrow's Dominant Force." They published this quote on page 51. You can look it up. It says, "Further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor." So, and that was 5 years before 9/11 actually occurred.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting that you see that, you hear that. It's like, that's kind of strange that they have all these policies and they're talking about,
Okay, what are your thoughts on 9/11? I mean, I'm not denying that it was terrorists.
right.
It was some sort of terrorists, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know
yeah.
the detail. But what's the other building, the third building that didn't even get hit by a plane, it just had a fire, and then all of a sudden that implodes?
Right.
It looks like Vegas. It looks like an old Vegas hotel going down.
Right.
But I don't know enough about it, so I just want to get your thoughts on
Okay.
the controversy around 9/11 and the attacks.
I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of documentaries out there that kind of deconstruct this.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of it is just like, a lot of people will be like, well, that's just somebody's testimony. That's a witness. We can't really measure that, So
It's kind of true. It's somewhat true.
The strongest evidence we have that it was actually, we have to say, what, the official 9/11 report can't be true. We want to investigate this because whatever was published doesn't match the scientific community. So you have physicists, you have world-renowned scientists in on this saying the official 9/11 report doesn't match what actually happened when you match the physical evidence. Like in terms of the fire melting the steel, the report was saying the fire was 2,000 degrees. Steel doesn't melt till 3,000 degrees at least. And then you have like the whole physics of the building. Several buildings in our history have burned that have been tall and huge and wide, whatever you call it. They never implode that way,
Yeah.
It looked like a controlled demolition. A lot of people who were there on the ground said they heard explosions and bombs going off. You see the video, you see like implosions. The way it just fell so perfectly and symmetrically, it makes you question, was that really because of the planes that hit and they fell exactly the same? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it's so weird how, because it's such a horrific thing that happened, and you have people jumping from windows as fire is heating up their backs. It was intense, to say the least, and
terrible.
sad and horrific and almost unbelievable. And so, and you put yourself like in that position. What would I do? Would I jump? I would have to jump. I mean, I don't want to be burned. I mean, and then you're just like, okay, you're on your way down. What the fuck is going on in your head at that point? And then is there just blackness then? I mean, what happens after that? Blackness? Or are you in heaven? I mean, are you in purgatory? Are you waiting? Are you in the waiting room? What's happening? Are you on a gurney? Are you watching yourself from outside your body? I mean, what's happening? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? So a lot of things obviously like that go through your mind, and that's what I was thinking, when I was watching this footage, and I didn't think about these inconsistencies.
You don't think about it
because it's so devastating on a psychological, on an emotional level, not only as an American but as a human being that understands the sheer terror. And these things, it's not like this is like an isolated event in history. There's been horrific things happening throughout our history, and
I'm not saying
it doesn't make one less. It doesn't make that 9/11 any less horrific. I mean, it's just each thing is just if it happens in your lifetime, it changes your perspective on it. Absolutely.
I mean, it was very traumatizing for me. I mean, I was a senior in high school when that happened. Like, I just, I was becoming a mini adult, starting to learn the real world and how it functioned. And it's just like, was very depressing. I felt like the world was ending, in 2001. I was this young kid, but it was just very traumatizing. I remember I remember exactly where I was that day, what I was doing. And it's just amazing how one day that you normally would never remember, now it's ingrained in your mind and your memory forever. And I could always recall what happened that day, where I was and what I was standing, where I was standing. It's just amazing how your mind just records that trauma and you remember it for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
It sparked the emo era, I think, for sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Because that's when emo started getting popular, and people were just starting like, I'm depressed, dressing in black.
People wanted darker music. I think it's
true.
It didn't seem to rub them the right way to be happy, but maybe people are people. They always want. Something.
Pop always sells. Pop always sells.
Yeah, true.
I mean, look at what's going on in music right
I wonder
now.
what 9/11, how did it affect music? It affected a lot in the way we travel, because musicians travel a lot. Before 9/11, we used to have just unlimited amount of gear we'd be checking. We'd just check all this gear, just amp, guitars, tons, like suitcases. That's 14 crazy. Pieces, 24 That's pieces crazy. We've had between like 6 people, 24 pieces.
Isn't that expensive to do that?
It is now, but it wasn't then. It was no problem. We'd get it for free most of the time.
That's crazy.
Nowadays, you get charged for one bag. I got to say, the worst airline I've ever been on, even counting Mexican air, like Mexican really janky airlines. Spirit Air. Do not fly Spirit Air. You get charged for a check-on and a carry-on. You get charged also for your carry-on. So you literally have to have nothing with you to not be charged. Maybe you can carry a book or something.
That's stupid. I mean, it's just
absolutely
ridiculous.
Criminal. It's criminal. They have such. I mean, they say, well, the tickets are cheaper, so we charge more for the bags. It's like an a la carte thing.
Stupid.
But it's really annoying. It's
it's like the TSA, man. They're Nazis too. I mean, they're like going, they're patting down 5-year-old little girls and inspecting her little dolly, and just stupid things like that. It's just
they're missing
ridiculous.
By looking through the whole haystack instead of stepping back for a second and going, okay, wait a second. I dropped the needle. It was in my right hand, and I saw it go over here. So I'm going to just sort of focus on this area. Instead of that, they're just diving into the whole haystack.
Right.
They're never going to find anything.
My brother checked in. The first time we recorded with you at Monkey Trench, the first time we came back, we were at the airport. My brother had a snow globe in his backpack, and they're like, "You have to check that. It could be plutonium for all we know." We're like, "Are you kidding me?"
If it's
I was like, "It's a
plutonium,
snow
how
globe."
is it good for it to be checked as well?
We're like, "It's a snow globe that has Seattle inside. You could have bought it in the gift shop, you know?"
Yeah, it's
It's
just
so crazy.
it's ludicrous, and that's the thing is most people are very common sense people, like, but our laws aren't that way. Our laws are
Right.
made to confuse us. They're made to keep us
Right.
unaware of what our real rights are, what our
Yeah.
actual do's and don'ts are. And so you get things like, oh, if you're a cop, you better tell me because that's the law or it's entrapment. Well,
Right.
it turns out they don't have to tell you they're a cop.
Right.
It's just you're either breaking the law or you're not. They don't have to tell you
Right.
shit. And it's like if you would just sit back and think about what's common sense here.
Right.
It's not always what the law is, but in this case, it is. You know, they don't
That's
have
true.
to tell you.
That's true.
I'm pretty.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard that recently. I don't know if that changed. Maybe it used to be the other way around.
Not sure, but I just know that things get out of hand. I mean, I feel like there's it's like, what does it take for reform to change? It's always usually has to be a really bad situation where someone dies or gets hurt, or it's like things
Yeah.
don't get better until something really bad happens. Unfortunately, it's just the way it
Jeez.
is. But I remember,
I just
I
yawned.
was
Sorry.
thinking, no, it's fine. Thinking about the TSA, I remember on a previous podcast that I did hear from you, you were talking about like, oh, I wonder the people who don't opt to do the scanner, are they like, are they wanting to feel somebody feel them up or something?
Oh yeah,
Standing
there's
on
this
the
thing called
side?
opting in,
Yeah,
opting off,
yeah.
where you get
I
off
actually,
on opting out.
I actually, I actually opted out the last time that I went to the airport.
How was it?
Uh, it was fine. It just took forever because I
They
don't.
make you wait for one. They make you
They
wait
make you
for a
wait.
while.
There's like 20 minutes, and it's funny because the guy comes in. He's like, "All right, they keep trying to encourage." It's funny because they always try to persuade you, like, it's not that bad. Everyone's doing it. It's always like they have this propaganda campaign that they try to tell people.
Yeah.
So it's pretty funny. It's just like, just go with it. Everyone's doing it, kind of thing.
Meanwhile, you
But
don't
not-
know how much radiation you're getting when you walk through there.
Yeah, I know. I heard you said you really have no choice. Actually, if I were you, I probably would do the same thing. I wouldn't opt out, but because I don't fly as much, I just opt out because I don't know what those scanners are doing to people.
Yeah.
And what is it doing? How much radiation is it?
I'm kind of like choosing my battles and making my life easy. I mean, I can make points in other ways
Yeah,
rather than at an airport where there's like cameras everywhere.
I know.
and
It's crazy.
I'm probably already on some list, but I'm sure it's not like at the
I am
level.
too, man.
I'm sure I hope it's not at the level to where they would see it every time.
Yeah,
I
that's
fly
true.
somewhere or whatever. But
Yeah, I doubt
with
it.
that being said, I'm on a list in Canada, just a different list where they always ask me about. Oh, it looks like you returned away from Canada once. Tell me about that, and they want to know every
What?
time. And it's not really that big of a deal. It's pretty small potatoes, and it has nothing to do with drugs, and it has nothing to
Yeah.
do with really anything wrong. But
Right.
it had to do with band gear, honestly. They didn't want me to bring the band gear in, so.
Okay.
Every time I get stopped and I try to go into Canada, doesn't matter if
Wow.
it's flying in or walking, driving in,
Right.
walking in. I don't walk in.
I
Mexico
heard they
do
wanted.
that, but
uh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I heard they want to charge bands more now to tour Canada.
It already costs so much, and they're going to charge more. It's ridiculous.
Why is that?
It's
They're getting greedy.
ridiculous.
Everyone's getting greedy.
Greedy, and they feel like
That's horrible.
I don't know. Why would somebody do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe they're learning from us over here. Who
Canada's
knows?
always had kind of a thing where they have like they have a law where it's like Canadian content law.
Right.
Radio stations have to play a certain amount of Canadian music.
Right.
TV shows, same. TV stations, probably the same. And maybe it's not for TV, but for radio it is. And it's the same way with like their festivals and stuff like that. They have to have Canadian bands on the festivals. So I think it's just another tightening down, like keeping bands out that would come
Right.
over and make money and bring it back to the U.S. And they want the Canadian bands. And I almost wish, that's horrible because it's affecting me. But at the
Right.
same time, I almost wish that it was like that for us, because maybe
That's true, right?
we would like get a break on some things in the U.S. But the U.S. they just whatever, highest bidder.
Man,
But
it's
it
just
should be that
crazy.
way. It should be, the capitalist way in music is it's not always the best music rises to the top, but
Right.
the hardest working / best music usually does rise to the top. You get a lot of mediocre too that's up there,
True.
but
That's true.
it's just the way of the world. It's the pyramid. It's the pyramid, man. It's a pyramid.
I know it's true. We're at the bottom for sure, but I think you're. I mean, I think you're doing really well for yourself. I wouldn't count you
Yeah,
at the
no,
bottom.
I'm very happy. I'm happy. That's the
Yeah.
thing is I bitch about these things because this is the show and I want to
Yeah.
talk about things that people
No, it's important. Yeah.
think
Definitely.
about from time to time. It doesn't rule my
Right.
life, and I'm not
Yeah.
talking about it all the time, but it's interesting, and it can change lives. There's people that have no idea about this stuff, and
It's true.
maybe somebody can look into it. I don't know.
I just wish people, well, whenever they can, instead of opting to go to that party, why don't you just sit home and let's research something that you might
Hey,
be able
I
to
don't know
tell
about
somebody
that,
about.
David. Let's not go that far. I opt for the party, guys, ladies.
Well, I mean,
Party.
if you go to a party like a lot, I mean, what's one time? I'm not saying all the time, just one time. I mean, honestly, that's how I got all my information is because I spend time looking things up from
Yeah,
time.
during the week, just
Do it. You should just do it. I'm not
you
saying that,
you
but
could be researching while you're listening to this podcast right now.
do whatever you can and just learn as much as you can and spread that around. And then so you should go to parties and talk to people about it too. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
that's a good thing. It's a good thing. I agree, definitely.
So I'm gonna
So,
be driving around Texas. Sorry to change the subject so much,
no,
but
perfect.
I'm gonna be driving around Texas, and it'll be interesting. It's gonna be. I assume I'll be by myself a lot of the time,
Okay.
and I'll have a lot of time to take it
Look
all in
some
and
things
think
up
about
just
all
for
this
fun.
stuff. Yeah, I will be.
You know, I know
Um,
they did a story recently, DNA checkpoints in Texas, where they were stopping cars
Golly.
to test your blood alcohol, but they got a blood sample. And if you said no, they bribed you and said, "Here's $100 certificate or $100 that you can redeem later
Are you
on."
kidding me?
No, they were trying to coerce people into it, and some people got mad and said, "Am I under arrest?" No, then you're free to go. But they were really, really. It was like a scientific research group. Supposedly, that was the guys, and they were
Oh,
lining people up in Texas. You can look it up. It's a news story that was published. I can send you the article link. And they were lining cars up, and it said DNA checkpoint, and they were lining people up and saying, "Would you like to contribute to the study?" And it wasn't more like a question; they were really coercing you to do it. And some people did it without questions asked, which is really interesting. So it's kind of like they're doing psychological tests on us all the time to see if we conform, to see if we fight
yeah.
back. Like the gas prices, I very much believe that's a psychological experiment. When they hiked it up that one summer, by $2, it's crazy.
See,
Um,
okay, will they break or will they just pay it? It's like they
exactly.
really are addicted to this shit, It's
But I think we're all like they're setting us up like the boiling lobster. Like the lobster doesn't know,
Yep.
or the frog,
The
right?
frog,
He
yeah, the frog.
doesn't know he's being boiled until it's too late.
Absolutely.
I feel like we're all kind of in that state of we don't really know. We hear, we kind of feel it. It's getting warmer, but then once it gets too hot, it might be too late.
I
So
agree.
that's why it's good to talk about things like Syria. What's going on over there? Why are we bombing people we're trying to protect? Things like that. It's good to question everything for sure. Should always
Definitely.
question everything. Any
Question
institution.
everything. Absolutely.
Always question. Don't just stay in a little box of philosophy or psychology. Always think outside the box. I definitely recommend that
Definitely.
to everybody out there.
Who am I? How did I get here? Where do I want to be? Why?
Yeah,
What's my motivation?
exactly. Yeah.
What's most important to me? Am I
It,
spending the most time on what's most important?
you'll definitely feel a lot happier. You'll feel better off if you have that purpose in your life. And it goes back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in psychology, which, everybody has the intrinsic need to feel loved, accepted, secure, all the basic things that make life essential. We
Yeah,
have to know our place in the world. What's our purpose? Why, what are we meant to do, in this life? So it's pretty interesting for sure.
definitely. Man, that's a great way to leave it. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining me on the Mike Herrera Hour. It's been a good
Anytime.
overtime. David Camarena, everybody.
From Heart Like War.
Heart Like War.